My wife and I had been married for 5 years, and for most of that time our life felt predictable in the best possible way. We had routines, shared responsibilities, and the quiet kind of happiness that comes from building something stable together. I never imagined something so ordinary could suddenly start feeling so strange. About 2 months ago, I began noticing a small change in her behavior. At first it was so minor that I barely registered it. She started taking short walks late at night. She told me it helped clear her mind after work. Her job had been stressful lately, and I didn't question it. Everyone needs a way to decompress. The first time she left the house around 11 at night, I thought nothing of it. I stayed on the couch watching TV while she grabbed her jacket and stepped outside. She was back within 20 minutes. But then it happened again the next night, and the night after that. Soon it became a routine. Every night at exactly 11, she would put on the same hoodie and leave the house. Sometimes she said goodbye, sometimes she didn't. At first I assumed she was just taking the same short walk around the block. I even admired the discipline she seemed to have about it. Meanwhile, I was still sitting on the couch scrolling my phone. But after a couple of weeks, the pattern started bothering me. It wasn't the walking itself that felt strange. It was the way she seemed almost secretive about it. If I asked where she went, she always gave vague answers. Just around the neighborhood, or just needed some air. She never said anything specific. I noticed something else too. She never invited me to come with her. That might sound like a small thing, but before all this, we used to take evening walks together sometimes. Now she seemed determined to go alone. One night I suggested joining her. She smiled politely, but said she needed the time to think. I respected that and dropped the subject. Everyone deserves some personal space, even in a marriage. Still, the thought lingered in the back of my mind. The walks continued every single night. Same time, same hoodie, same quiet exit through the front door. It became so routine that I could almost set a clock by it. I tried not to read too much into it. Maybe she really was just stressed. Maybe I was the one overthinking things. But then something happened that made me question everything. One evening, I got a message from my neighbor. We weren't particularly close, but we chatted occasionally when mowing our lawns or taking out the trash. His message started in a strange way. He wrote that he didn't want to cause any trouble. He said he hesitated before sending it. That alone made my stomach tighten. Then he sent a photo. It was taken at night from across the street. In the photo, I could clearly see my wife standing on the corner 2 streets away. She wasn't walking around the block like she claimed. She was getting into a car. The car was a black SUV. It was parked under a streetlight, and the driver's face wasn't visible. My heart started racing when I saw it. I stared at the image for several seconds, trying to make sense of it. The neighbor explained he'd noticed the car coming by a few times late at night. He didn't think much of it until he recognized my wife getting inside. He told me again he wasn't trying to cause drama. He just felt like I deserved to know. I thanked him and said I'd look into it. But the moment I put my phone down, my thoughts started spiraling. Why would she lie about taking a walk? Why would she meet someone in a car 2 streets away instead of just leaving from our driveway? The questions started piling up faster than I could answer them. I tried to stay calm and tell myself there had to be a reasonable explanation. Maybe it was a coworker. Maybe someone needed help with something. But deep down I already knew the explanation. My brain kept drifting toward cheating. I hated that word the moment it crossed my mind. I wanted to reject it immediately. But the more I thought about the late-night walks, the more suspicious they felt. The next night I decided I would watch what happened. I didn't tell her anything about the message or the photo. At 11 o'clock she stood up from the couch, just like always. She grabbed her hoodie and slipped on her shoes. She gave me a quick smile before heading toward the door. I pretended to stay focused on the TV. The moment she stepped outside, I muted the volume and waited. I counted slowly to 30. Then I quietly grabbed my jacket and followed. I kept my distance as I walked down the street. She moved with purpose, not like someone casually taking a walk. Instead of turning at the usual corner, she kept going. My pulse started pounding harder with every step. She turned down the same street shown in the photo. I stayed far enough back that she wouldn't notice me. Then I saw it. The black SUV was already parked under the streetlight. She walked directly toward it without hesitation. My stomach dropped as she opened the passenger door. She climbed inside like she had done it many times before. A moment later, the car pulled away. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, watching the taillights disappear into the distance. The reality of what I was seeing started to sink in. My wife wasn't going for walks. She was meeting someone. For the rest of that night, I barely slept. My mind kept replaying the image of her getting into that car. The next day, I tried acting normal around her. She didn't seem suspicious at all. She laughed at a joke during breakfast and kissed me goodbye before leaving for work. If something was going on, she hid it perfectly. But I couldn't shake the feeling that my marriage had just cracked open. Every time she smiled, I wondered if it was real. Every time she looked at her phone, I wondered who she was texting. The questions refused to stop. That evening, I decided I needed answers. Waiting and wondering would drive me insane. So when 11 o'clock arrived again, I was ready. I watched her grab the hoodie and head out the door. This time I followed immediately. My heart was pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. She took the same path as the night before. Same street, same corner, same waiting SUV. When the car drove away, I ran back to my own car parked in the driveway. My hands were shaking as I started the engine. I followed from a distance, careful not to get too close. The black SUV drove through several quiet neighborhoods. After about 20 minutes, it finally slowed down. It turned into a residential street lined with houses. Not a hotel. Not an apartment complex. Just a regular neighborhood. The car parked in front of a small house near the end of the street. My wife stepped out and walked up to the front door. The driver stayed in the car for a moment before pulling away. I parked half a block down and watched. She knocked on the door. A few seconds later, someone opened it and let her inside. I sat there gripping the steering wheel, trying to process what I was seeing. The anger and confusion were overwhelming. My thoughts raced through every possible explanation. None of them felt good. After almost an hour of waiting, I finally snapped. I couldn't sit there imagining things anymore. I got out of my car and walked toward the house. Each step felt heavier than the last. When I reached the front door, my hands were trembling. I knocked harder than I meant to. Footsteps approached from inside. The door slowly opened. And standing there was my younger brother. The moment my brother closed the door behind him, the tension on the porch became unbearable. My wife stood beside him quietly, her arms folded across her chest. Neither of them looked surprised to see me there. I asked again what was going on, but my voice sounded weaker this time. My brother rubbed the back of his neck like he had been rehearsing this conversation for weeks. My wife simply watched me carefully. "You weren't supposed to find out like this," he finally said. The words made my stomach twist instantly. It sounded like something had been planned. I asked him what he meant by that, but he didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at my wife for permission to continue. She nodded slowly. That small moment told me everything. Whatever was happening between them, they were working together. My heart began pounding harder. The anger I felt while driving over suddenly mixed with fear. I realized I might not like whatever explanation they were about to give me. My wife stepped forward slightly. The porch light cast a long shadow behind her as she looked directly at me. "You followed me," she said calmly. "I wondered when you would." That sentence confused me more than anything else. She didn't sound nervous or guilty. She sounded like someone who had been waiting. "What are you talking about?" I asked. My voice cracked slightly as I tried to keep control. My brother reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a thick envelope. He handed it to me without saying a word. At first, I didn't want to open it. Something about the weight of it made my chest tighten. But eventually curiosity forced my hand. I slid the papers out slowly. The first page made my stomach drop instantly. There were screenshots of messages, my messages. The texts were from my phone conversations with another woman. Conversations I had believed were completely private. I flipped to the next page and felt my throat go dry. More screenshots. Photos of hotel bookings. Receipts. The evidence continued page after page. My hands started shaking as I realized what I was looking at. Every secret conversation I thought I had hidden was printed in black and white. I looked up at my wife, hoping to see some kind of misunderstanding in her eyes. But there wasn't any. She had already accepted the truth. My brother crossed his arms and leaned against the railing. He didn't look angry. He looked disappointed. "That's 6 months of evidence," he said quietly. 6 months. Hearing the number out loud made my stomach turn. My wife sighed softly before speaking again. Her voice was calm but heavy with exhaustion. "At first I didn't believe him," she said, nodding toward my brother. Apparently he had been the one who discovered everything first. One evening, while we were visiting him, my phone lit up on the kitchen counter. The notification preview had revealed more than it should have. The name on the message wasn't familiar to him. But the message itself was unmistakably flirtatious. He ignored it at first, because he didn't want to assume the worst. Everyone deserves the benefit of the doubt, but the messages kept coming. Eventually curiosity got the better of him. Later that night he checked my phone while I was in the bathroom. What he saw made him feel sick. There were hundreds of messages. Photos, plans to meet. Conversations that clearly crossed every line of loyalty. Instead of confronting me immediately, he told my wife. He believed she deserved to know the truth. But she didn't believe him at first. She thought he must have misunderstood something. Or maybe she simply didn't want to believe it. That's when she started checking my phone herself. She began noticing things she had ignored before. Late work nights that didn't make sense. Unfamiliar charges on our bank account. Messages that disappeared too quickly. The more she looked, the more the truth became impossible to ignore. Eventually she discovered who the other woman was. Someone she trusted, someone who had been in our house many times, her best friend. Saying those words out loud felt like being punched in the chest. I tried to explain that it wasn't serious. I told her the relationship with the other woman didn't mean anything. But even as I spoke, I knew how empty it sounded. My brother shook his head slowly. "You've been lying to both of them," he said. "And you're still trying to lie now." My wife stared at the ground for a moment before continuing. "The late night walks weren't walks," she said. "They were meetings. Every night she had been coming here to sort through the evidence. They had been gathering screenshots, receipts, and messages. Building a timeline of everything I had done. At first she kept hoping the evidence would stop making sense. She hoped maybe there was a misunderstanding. But every new message confirmed the same painful truth. I had been cheating for almost a year. Not once, not twice, but dozens of times. The weight of that reality settled heavily in the air between us. My wife finally looked back at me. For a moment I saw tears forming in her eyes, but she quickly wiped them away. "You didn't just betray me," she said quietly. "You humiliated me." Her words cut deeper than anything else that night. Because I knew she was right. She reached into the envelope and pulled out one last set of papers. These weren't screenshots. They were legal documents. Divorce papers. My chest tightened as I stared at them. "You've already decided," I said quietly. She nodded. "I had to," she replied. She explained that she had spent weeks thinking about what to do. Every night she hoped she would wake up and realize it had all been a nightmare. But reality never changed. The person she thought she married simply didn't exist anymore. I tried apologizing. I told her I had made a mistake. But the moment the words left my mouth, I knew they weren't enough. Some mistakes can't be undone. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she said something I will never forget. "You didn't lose me tonight," she said softly. "You lost me the first time you lied." The words hit harder than any argument could have. Because deep down I knew she was right. She turned and opened the door behind her. For a moment she hesitated. Then she stepped inside without looking back. My brother stayed on the porch with me. The silence between us felt heavier than anything else. He shook his head slowly. "You had everything," he said. "And you still threw it away." Then he closed the door. And for the first time in my life, I realized that some choices can destroy everything you care about.